Welcome everyone to our Facebook Live today on Shape Creator, which is one of my absolute favorite features on the creative icon. You are going to love learning about this. If you haven't used it yet, you are going to have fun today. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different things you can do with Shape Creator and some project ideas and things that I've made using Shape Creator. I am Nancy Bronstein. I am a PFAFF educator. Most of the time before COVID went out to all parts of the country to teach people in person. We are starting to do that again, which is I am thrilled about. I was out last week teaching in person, which was wonderful. But at least we can reach out and get together on Facebook Live. And also you should know that this is being recorded. So if you have to miss part, or if there's a part that you don't understand, you can always rewind because it's a recording. Or if you know of anyone who doesn't know how to use Shape Creator on their icon, or maybe is sitting on the fence about getting an icon, they should definitely watch this video because I think that Shape Creator and Applique Creator are fantastic features on the machine, two of my favorite things. So 2 weeks ago, I did a class on Applique Creator. And what we're going to do today is kind of like Applique Creator, but there's things that you could do with Shape Creator that you couldn't do with Applique Creator. So 2 weeks ago, I showed you this. I had just a piece of fabric in the hoop where I had made this design with Shape Creator. I'm sorry, with Applique Creator. So I did a similar thing for the backside with Shape Creator, just very similar, but no applique. So you can see some of the really fun things you can do with this feature on your machine. Basically what it is it's pretty powerful embroidery design software that's right in the icon. Now, there is Shape Creator in the 4.5. However, it is not as powerful as it is, not as feature laden as it is in the icon. And also because the icon has that big screen that's about as big as an iPad, it's much easier to design on. You know, you can see what you're doing and you can zoom in and see what's going on. It's just a much better interface to do any kind of design work than, you know, a little small one, the smaller one that's on the 4.5. But it's great that it's on 4.5. So we're going to flip back and forth from me talking and showing samples and me showing you techniques right on the screen of how you do these, how you make these different items with Shape Creator. So I'm going to flip over to my screen here. So this is the screen of my icon. Oh, and I should say that we have 3 staff listening and looking to see if you're asking any questions. So please write your question at any time. They will type it up for me so that I can check really quickly periodically to answer questions. And as we're going along, I'm more than happy to do that so that you can follow along and have your questions answered as I'm going over that particular item. So back to my icon. So this is the screen that comes up when you turn on your icon. And Shape Creator happens inside embroidery. So we have to start embroidery. And the first thing that I would do is just check my hoop size to make sure I want to use the biggest hoop. So we have lots of room to design. Now, Shape Creator is down here at the bottom in the toolbar at the bottom. It says Shape Creator. You touch that to get started. Then once you are in Shape Creator mode, you'll see Shape Creator up at the top of your screen. So you know you're where you need to be. And you have 2 icons that are lit up here because you have 2 choices of families of shapes that you can create. So this first family here, oops, we have these basic shapes. Then we also have these kind of crazy dingbat shapes. Then in the font menu, we have numbers and letters that are more, they're outlines basically. So they're going to look a little bit different than the solid ones. But we're going to go back to our basic shapes here. And, you know, you can make shapes that are circles, squares, rectangles, ovals, all these different things. And then I have one dingbat sample to show you because I don't use the dingbats all the time, but I thought it was kind of fun summary project. So this is the actually an applique, but it is using one of the dingbat shapes, and I used it to make something to hold my glasses. It basically sits next to my night table, and when I'm going to go to sleep, I slip my glasses in there so they don't get scratched up. So it's kind of a cute dingbat. But going back to the dingbats or the shapes that I use all the time, if you wanted to just start playing with this, I would recommend starting with circles. Now, in a little bit later, I'm going to tell you why you'd want to use one circle over the other. But for right now, I'm just going to touch the circle. So what I have here basically is the idea of a circle. I have to tell the icon what to make that circle out of. Am I going to make it out of sewing stitches? Am I going to go in and pick some small designs, embroidery designs to make my circle? The sky's the limit, basically. So I'm just going to touch the corner and make it a little bit bigger. And actually, it looks like I have my reshaping unlocked. So now it's become an oval. So I'm going to lock this back up because I want a circle. So that's how you would go ahead and make an oval, is you have to unlock the scale button. And I will go over that again in a moment. But I want to start out with a perfect circle. So now I'm going to drag this corner down to make it a little bit bigger. And because I have this scale locked, when I change the size, it keeps it a circle as opposed to making it an oval. When I unlock it, when I pull the corners to resize it, to change the size of it, I can drag it into an egg shape or an oval of different types, and of course smaller and larger circles. And again, I've kind of made it into an oval, but we're going to go with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my sewing stitches and pick one of my favorite stitches out, which is one of the maxi stitches. The maxi stitches are really big and really gorgeous. So I'm going to pick this stitch. And with the icon, if you touch an icon to open something up, most often you touch that icon to close it and get it out of the way. So let's pull this up a little bit so you can see. So what happened is it plopped down one stitch, because all that design is one stitch. And I want to fill this circle up with those stitches. So I can keep hitting the plus sign until it fills up, or I could touch the number here and then guess by putting in a number here to see if that fills it up. And I think I want maybe one more because I want them really to come together. And I just keep adding more until it looks right to me. That looks a little busy. When I'm happy with it, I click OK down at the bottom. And now I have this beautiful ring, floral ring, to start out with. Now I'm going to deselect by touching away from this square, and I'm going to add another circle. So I'm going to go back into my shapes, add a circle, pull that down. And this time I'm going to pick a slightly smaller stitch because I don't want to overwhelm the one I just picked. And let's see, I kind of like this stitch. So now I have one of those stitches, but it's facing the way I would like. So I'm going to make this just slightly more in the center, I think. And I'm going to go down to edit to put in more of those. It looks sort of like a lotus leaf to me. And I'm going to touch the number 1 here so that I can just input a guess for the number of flowers I want to fill up my circle. And I don't have enough, so I keep adding more. And what I see on my screen that you may not see on your screen is there is a green box around each stitch. And that indicates the beginning and the end of the stitch. So what I want to do, if I want it continuous, is I want those to touch. And if I wanted to look very closely, I could go down here and magnify my view. So then I could really see if these guys are touching. I think maybe I want to add one more. Yeah, that looks better to me. It looks like these bottom parts of the stitch are joining now, whereas before they were not. Now I'm going to go back to no magnification and at 100%. I'm happy with it, so I'm going to click OK and deselect. Now at this point, in the center part, I could put someone's initial, do a monogram. I could put a baby announcement. I could put another design in there. I can keep adding circles. I'm going to add another circle to add to my design. And this time I'm going to go into my embroidery designs and go to where I know there are very small designs in the mini menu. And I'm going to go down and pick, let's see, so I want something that looks like a leaf. Let's choose this one. So now I've got this one leaf there, or it has 3 petals to one leaf. And I'm going to guess maybe I want 30 of these in there. Oh, I didn't click on OK, so it didn't take the input. Okay, and that looks like they're overlapping a little too much for me. Oh, actually, yeah, let's make sure they don't overlap too much. That looks good. And click on OK. And then for the middle part, I'm going to create my own flower. So I'm going to go back to Shape Creator and pick a circle again and drag it down. I got to get right on the corner, drag it down to here, go back into my embroidery designs, and I got to go back to where the designs are very small. By the way, when you are looking for embroidery designs and you're paging through all these beautiful designs, when you come on one that you're thinking about, like this one, if I touch it down here, it will tell me the approximate size. So I'll, if that said 100 by 100 millimeters, I'd know right off the bat it's too big. So I'm going to load that one. And now I'm going to put in 4 more. And then I'm going to take the corner and I'm going to pull it down to make my own flower. And what I can do is make that much bigger so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. And that looks good to me. Oh, want to get it at 100% magnification. Now I went too far. There we go. So now I have that nice design in the center. And what's really nice about Shape Creator is, say I went and I stitched this out, I took it out of the hoop, and I thought, that looks really bare in there. And or it could be another design where it has a bare area. I can put this back into the hoop and with precise positioning, make another circle and get it right where I want it. So you can create things on the fly to fit empty areas, as well as just creating something from scratch that you really like and you're going to use. Now, I can stitch this out. I can save it. Like down here, there's a heart. If I touch the heart, I get this interface where if I give this design a name, and I can save it to my Sonnet Cloud, or I could save it to a USB device if I had that plugged in, and give it to my friend that might want to stitch it out. Now, as it stands right now, I have these circles of designs that are all black, except for the center. If I wanted to change them, I could go up and I thought I could change. Okay, here we go. I want to change the first row of flowers and I want to make that a different color. I can go up here, touch there. Maybe I want to touch here. Yeah, I want to touch there and then touch these are different colors here. Maybe if I pull it out further, you can see it better. This is different Robeson Anton colors. And if I want to make this outer ring a different color, I would touch my color palette there and I could make that one that pinky purpley color. And then I could go down and do the same for all of the others if I wanted to. And I could go down and do the second ring and the third ring and so on. So this depends on what you want to do, but you have all these options to create something beautiful. Now, I'll show you something that it's not quite as ornate as that, but something that I made. This doily, which was made, the design was completely done on the icon. You know, no computer involvement, no software involvement outside of the software that's in the icon. And to give you a little tip, if you're going to do something like this where it's very kind of delicate, it's done on linen, and you know it's a doily, and the first thing that people are going to do when they see that, they're going to go, oh, that's beautiful. Then they're going to turn it over and look at the back, right? Well, if you want the back to look as nice as the front, what you want to do when you go to stitch this out is you want to turn off your thread cutter. What in general, the thread cutter is, you know, an amazing help. You know, I love having a thread cutter, but what it does that could be annoying when you are going to have something delicate and see the back is it clips the tail and pulls it into pulls it to the back of your project, and if there's a stitch nearby, it's going to get wrapped around that stitch and it will create this sort of thread glob. So you want to turn off your thread cutter, and I'll show you where you do that, and then I see there's a couple questions. So I'm going to show you where you turn off your thread cutter, and then I'll come back and answer the questions. So if I was going to go and stitch this out, I would touch embroidery stitch out. Oh, one or more designs is outside the hoop. Okay, so I think one of the questions was centering things. So I'm going to show you how you would center things. So if I select that item, I can center it by, I want to have this icon active, and you know it's active because it's green, and I touch here and that centers that. I can go to the next circle, touch there, and that will center that circle. Touch there, and that will center that circle. Touch there, because that selects the outer purple circle, and that will center that one. Now let's see if it's happy about everything being in the hoop. No, something is too big. So it's probably this is too big, and it is. So I'm going to drag it down. And let's get you out of the way. See if I can grab that corner. And go back and center it. So I made the purple circle smaller because I probably pulled it out too big for my hoop. And now it's happy with that size. It's not outside of the hoop. So this is where you have all your settings on how this is going to stitch out. So if I were stitching this out on linen, I would turn off my thread cutters. If I were making this with, if I were going to make this and I was going to put a backing on it, I would not turn off the thread cutter because the backing would cover up all those little tails and thread globs. So let's see, I've got some questions. Will there be any enhancements to Shape Creator, Applique Creator, or Sequence Creator with the Icon 2? Oh, okay. Well, there are going to be, a bunch of really cool enhancements, and let me think about that. There will be a camera that will project the stitches onto your fabric. I'm not sure how I'm thinking, I don't have the icon, I haven't sewn on the icon 2, so I don't know all the bells and whistles, but I know there's some really cool ones. And I'm not sure how they will impact Shape Creator, Applique Creator, and Sequence Creator. I'm sure there will be ways that it will be easier to work with those features given the camera and the projections and things that it does, and the laser. So, but I don't know exactly. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question very well. Once I sew on it, once I get my hands on an icon too, which I can't wait, then I can answer that question. Okay, how do you join each stitch to prevent the machine from stopping and restarting with each stitch? Okay, that was something that I was going to get into. There's a few things. Number one, when you're lining them up, you want to make sure that those green boxes touch, and I would make it, I would turn up the magnification so that you can see that the stitches are actually stopping or are touching each other. Number two, another thing, sort of a fine point, when you are stitching out different stitches, let me put one on the screen here. I've got to go back to embroidery edit. And let's get rid of this. So what I did is I touched outside the design. I had a sustained touch, and that's what made that pop-up come up. And that's also where I could turn my grid on and off. I'm going to make another circle here to illustrate what I'm going to say. So this time I'm going to make a circle that goes clockwise. So it's going to stitch like this. Actually, I want to go into my sewing stitches. So I'm going to add this stitch and add another one. Well, let's fill this up. Too many. See, now I have them overlapped. I can see the green boxes are overlapping each other, and you can see the stitches are overlapping. And let's make this bigger so I can actually see that they are touching. And what I was going to say is that some stitches, when they stitch out, they will start, let's move this up. They will start like this one will go like this. And then when it comes to the next one, I'm sorry, it will go like this. And then when it comes to the next one, it's going to jump back over, and and it's going to it's not going to just go like this, basically. You can take a look at how the stitch stitches out, and this is not a really good example. So let me give you a better example. It's easier to see, and I'm not being very clear here. Let's say okay to that. And let's get another circle. Or actually, I'm going to just pull up Stitch Creator so we can look at a stitch. So in Stitch Creator, you can see the individual parts of your stitches. So let's get a decorative stitch here, like this guy. So we have all these stitches that are done to create one leaf, and it starts up here at the top. So if you want your circle to be made up of these leaves going in a circle, kind of like a wreath, then you are going to want to go counterclockwise. If you wanted so that each time it just keeps continuing to go in the direction that it's already stitching, rather than stitch down here, then jump back to the next one here. So it is helpful to take a look at how the stitch stitches out. Now, if you don't do that, is that a problem? No, it's a little not as elegant a solution. You know, if you see the stitch starts in one place, you want to continue. If the stitch is going counterclockwise, then you want a counterclockwise circle. If it's going clockwise, when it stitches out as it lays in your circle, then you want to go clockwise. I think more often than not it's counterclockwise, but I haven't stitched out every stitch in a circle. Stopping and starting. And there are some stitches that may kind of stitch over themselves. So you might want to take some part of the stitches out in Stitch Creator if it's kind of clunky when you're making a circle. It's one of those things that with experience you will come up with a more elegant solution to the problem. But if you don't, it's just going to take longer to stitch out. It's not going to ruin the project. It's just maybe it'll take extra stitches that you didn't really need if you had done it in a more elegant way by using Stitch Creator, which is a class all to itself. So I can't really go into that and cover Shape Creator in an hour. Okay. So we were talking about doing circles, and I talked about that. Oh, another circle technique or project that I wanted to show you, an idea, is I am about to have my first grandchild. So whenever I'm thinking about projects now, I'm thinking about baby stuff. So I made this, it's a work in progress, but this was using Shape Creator. I created a circle applique, and then when I added my stitches to make the circle, I used the buttonholes. So they're, I spaced them out so it's like a clock, then added the decorations, and it says, "Time for a nap, no more monkey business." So eventually this will have minutes and seconds and hour hand in the middle once I get the mechanism all straightened out here. So to do this project, I first created a circle out of the buttonholes. I'm sorry, I first created and you went into Applique Creator and made the face of the clock. Then I went into Shape Creator and made the buttonholes for the times, the hours on the clock. So I'm going to walk through how I did that so you know how to space things out. I have a question. Given these are individual stitches, do you recommend grouping each ring of stitches? Not quite sure I know what you mean. I typically will have the stitches touch each other so it creates a solid ring. Unless for some reason I want to do something like this clock where I want them spaced out, or I want to do something like one of the things I was going to show you if I have time is how to make a half circle. So say you want to do, say, the sun coming over a mountain and you only want half of a circle there, you can do a half circle instead of a full circle. So I'm going to show you the how I did the clock face, and perhaps that will answer your question. I'm not quite sure what you meant. And if I'm not answering it, maybe you can explain a little bit more what you're asking. So going back to my icon here, I'm going to delete some stuff. So the first thing I did, I'm not going to create the circle for the applique because I think that, that we've already pretty much seen that. I'm going to show you how to do the hours on the clock face. So I'm going to go back in and choose a circle. And then I'm going to go into actually my stitches and find a buttonhole. So I have my buttonhole down here, and I could go in and change that buttonhole so it's sitting more on top of the line like that, or it's sitting below the line like that. And I'm going to put it on top of the line. So you go into positioning, line positioning, and in the icon pretty much shows you what's going on there. Now, if you have this spacing icon active, where there's zero sort of circles with spaces in between, that is going to pretty much get your everything lined up where you want it if you put all of your hours on the clock, because it spaces them out evenly each time you add one to it. So now I have my hours on the clock. Then to go in to add I'll just do the verbiage so that you can see how you can curve fonts. So I'm going to go in and find my fonts, and I think I used Graphite 12. And so I'm going to put in Time for a Nap. And now you have this function over here on the left, which will curve it for us. And you have a curve that's pretty sharp and a curve that's less sharp. Then this icon will spread out the letters a bit. And then I would just pull it up there and center it, and we're good to go. So that gives you an idea of how I went through that. You know, then I made the other phrase down here and put got the monkey design out of my children's category, and there we have our clock face. Oh, so I should show you how, since we spoke about it, how to make a half circle. So for some, you know, if you want to make a rising sun, for instance, I'd go into Shape Creator and choose a circle. And let's find maybe a satin stitch. This might be good. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm not liking that one as much. So I want this one, 10. So down below, I have my stitch. And what I want to do is fill up half of the circle. So I'm going to guess that maybe it's 8. Not 58, but 8. And then I need to go into positioning. And I want these all to go to one side. So let's see what that looks like. Now I need more of those squiggles. So I've got them all on one side now. I'm going to click OK. And then I can just go into Edit and Rotate. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So if I had a mountain that I wanted that, like say there was a mountainside there, I could put this right on the edge of the mountain to make my sun coming up. And so then I wanted to go into, let's see, another question. I met with the individual green squares. Will the individual green squares move if you inadvertently touch one? Well, individual green squares indicate, no, they won't. You can't, say you had a circle of stitches, you can't pull one out by touching it. It's, at least I've never tried. I don't think that it would do that. I think that the green squares are there just to indicate the beginning and the end of the stitch. And you add and subtract stitches by hitting the plus or the minus, or you move them by going into positioning and making them equally spaced out, or like I just did with the sun, having it all on one side or the other, like so that you could always fill up a circle by having them right next to each other and then adding one more, instead of the way I did it, where they went like 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Just out of habit, that's the way I do it, but you don't have to do it that way. You could have them all touching each other and then just build the circle, you know, one design at a time, and either way is fine. Let's see, once you create the ring of stitches, will it automatically all stitch out at once, or do you have to push start or pedal for each stitch to progress? Well, if you put it on, let me show you. If I'm going to pull a design out of I'm not going to recreate a design. I'm going to pull one out of here. See if I can find one quicker than trying to design one. And I might be better off just designing one. All right, here's my clock. No, let's not do that. I think I'm going to be better off just designing it. So I'm going to pick my circle and say I have a hole. I make that out of the satin stitches again. So I have my circle. When I go to stitch it out, I go to embroidery stitch out. And I make sure that color block sort and color block merge are chosen. And that will make it, color block sort would put all of the same color together, but it will stop between each individual color, each individual item. Like it would put, if say you had red and blue and green things on your screen, sort would put all the red together, all the blue together, and all the green together. And then merge will take out any stops between the individual items, like a ball and a bat and a hat and a dog. You know, it would make all the red stitch out, then all the blue, all the green. Now, if you just had that circle and that's your entire design, you could always just put monochrome and then it will stitch through the whole thing. Now, sorting and merging, I'm going to tell you there are times when you may not want to click that. When you sort and merge, depending upon the design, the person, how it was designed and digitized, it can mess up applique, because sometimes things are, the stops in applique are done with different colors and it could throw things out of order. So, you know, use it with caution if you have an applique, for instance, like you're putting together a bunch of different designs and then adding some shape creator to it. Or if you have things that are laying on top of each other, it could change the order and it might not be advantageous. Let's see, another question. Would you use color sort on one stitch to make a continuous circle? Yes. Yeah, because it would stitch out, say you had, like I just did, I had a bunch of individual stitches that were all black. If I sort it, they will all get stitched. Now, if I had made two circles that were all black, it would probably stop between the two circles. That's the way I think it would, based on experience. But I'm not going to say 100%. I'd say 99% sure that's what's going to happen, because you have two discrete objects. The first one that's all black stitches will stitch out. Then the second one that's all black stitches will stitch out after a stop in between. That's what I think. Okay, so let's go back to what I'm going to show you control points. So I got to get rid of this. I got to go back to embroidery edit so we can make some new designs. So when we go into Shape Creator and we have these shapes, when you touch the shape and load it, there are these red squares, and those are control points that you can choose to make this into something shaped differently. That the circles have 3 different types of control points, and you just basically have to play with this to see how it works. But right now, the control points are right, basically, there's 3 on each side. And if I touch this dial, you'll see that what's going to happen is my circle is going to change shape, and it's gradually going to become like a rounded square. So now we have like an old-fashioned TV, it looks kind of like. And if I brought it back this way, it brings it back to a circle and then kind of a rounded square on end. And now we can go to these control points and it's going to do something a little bit similar, but a little bit different. And then these control points, I can make it even into a square. And this is an interesting shape, you know, where it's kind of almost like a square that's collapsing in on itself. Then we could go up to the flower and see what happens with that. And just need to see if I just got it. I want to make sure that I don't have a text from my support. Oh, thank you, Thomas. Or yep, that was Thomas. I forgot to change my camera screen. I get excited about telling you these things, and I think you're seeing one thing and you're actually not. I do this almost every time, and I apologize. Okay, that's what our support crew is for. So I'm going to go back to the circle and show you what I thought I was showing you. So I've got my circle in Shape Creator. I go down to positioning, and down here you have these different control point icons. With this one, as you change the control points, it kind of pulls them out, and you can make this kind of rounded square, or you can make, I gotta be in positioning, you can go back and make the square on end and rounded, or we can go in and change it to another series of control points and drag it and make it almost into a flower like that. And then this one, let's see if I can get the one I had before, where the sides are kind of collapsing in. It's kind of a cool square on end. Then if we go into flowers, the flower shape has the 3 series of control points, and we can make it more like a star that has the ends aren't sharp. Back to a flower, and like a very soft flower, more of a star shape. Then we'll go to the next control point. And this one, let's drag it up so you can see it better. Again, it's a star. Then you can make, is that, I think, a pentagon? Then on this one, so you just play with it, and you can make all these different shapes, and you know, it's really a lot of fun. Now, now let me get rid of, yeah, let's go back here. Not all of these shapes have the control points, and the ones I showed you the circle and the flower, and then this, is that a hexagon? I'm not sure. This has control points where you can make it into kind of a softer geometric figure. So you can change the sort of shapes of it, of the corners rather. But some of them do not allow you to, they don't have that function. So like the heart, everything is grayed out. So the heart, you can only change by going into edit, touching the scale button and unlocking it. And then you can change the shape by dragging it up, or you can make it a squat heart like that. That's the only way you can change it. You can't change it by the with the control point function. But most of these you can in the basic menu. The dingbats, you can't use control points, but you can make them much taller and skinnier, or wider and squatter. Now the straight line, you can go in and you have different control points. If you touch the second one, you can make like a ray. So if you wanted to make, for some reason, a line of stitches going on an angle, you would choose that one or this one. So you can have it on any angle that you like. So the control points are a lot of fun to play with. That is how I made the, well, basically, actually in Applique Creator, you can see it better. The star shape in the middle. This was made with using the control points in Applique Creator. Let's see, how do you make numbers for a clock and have them horizontal from any position? That is a tricky piece of business because you have to anticipate how they're going to show up on the clock face, and you might need to create the, you're going to need to flip the numbers around. So it takes a lot of fussing, which would take longer than I have left to do to show. But you will have, and you might have to flip them, mirror them this way or that way, and so it is trickier. It's much easier to use buttonholes or to use some, since it's a children's clock, I could have used little tiny animals, something like that. But certainly you can use numbers. You're just going to have to fuss with it more. It's going to be take you a little bit more time to make that. Okay, let's see what else I was going to show you. Oh, I was going to show you, speaking of straight lines, I'm going to show you how to make buttonholes for garments. Now, if I were making a garment and I had to do one buttonhole, I would get out my buttonhole foot and I'd make that buttonhole. But if I'm making a garment, say a jacket or coat, that I have to do 12 buttonholes, it's much easier to do it in doing it in embroidery in Shape Creator. And I'm going to show you how I would do that. So first of all, I would take my pattern or whatever I'm using to make the garment, and I would measure the placard. The placard is where the buttonholes go, and generally you do your buttonholes last, so you've already made your placard. So I would measure that from top to bottom. Then I would go into Shape, well, let's make sure I'm in a big hoop, I think. Yeah, I am. I would go into Shape Creator, and I would choose a straight line. Then I would rotate that by going into Edit. So this is your rotation button. Then I'm going to resize this. As I pull the ends, as I actually touch one of the corners and pull it up, you will see the numbers up there, and that is the length of that. So I would make it the length of my placard, because you're going to want a little space at the top of the placard and a little space at the bottom. And then I would go into my stitches where my buttonholes reside, which is under Utility, and pick out a buttonhole. And by the way, these buttonholes are designed for different types of fabrics. So if you wonder, you can touch the question mark and then touch the buttonhole, and it will tell you, oh, I'm not in, probably, I wonder if I can't do that in embroidery. There we go. This is for a basic buttonhole for blouses, shirts, and jackets. Then that one is also shirts and jackets, but I know there are some that are made for knit. That's a decorative one, and I should have checked this before I started teaching this, obviously. Decorative buttonhole, cross stitch. And that's an heirloom buttonhole. I may have spoken out of turn. I thought some of these were for knits. Nope, they're just different types of buttonholes, but they will tell you the usage. Maybe this one is decorative also with triangle tack. Okay, at any rate, we have our buttonhole up there. If I want my buttonhole going like this, I'd go into positioning and touch that icon to turn it up and down. Then I'd go back to Edit and I'd look at my pattern. If I needed 4 buttonholes, I could put 4 in here. But what if I want a decorative? Shoot. Again, I didn't turn on the camera. I am so sorry. Camera where it should be. Okay, so let's start over again. You're looking at the side of my back while I'm talking away, and I'm so sorry. That's why I need an assistant right here, I think. Okay, so I'm going to start over again. So let's get rid of you. Delete all. So I go into Shape Creator, and I would pick a straight line. Then I want to rotate this 90 degrees. So I go into edit and touch the rotation button. Then as I drag this up, it will tell me, if I touch one of the corners to make it bigger, it will tell me how many millimeters it is. And I would make that to fit my placard. Then I'll go into my stitches and find a buttonhole. And I have my buttonhole going this way. Now, some garments you might want that. If you want it going up and down, you go into positioning, touch this icon. Now it's up and down. Now, if I wanted to just say add 4 more buttonholes, I could touch this and put 5 to make it a total of 5. Or I'm going to go back in, add my buttonhole. And I am going to now add a decorative element to go between the buttonholes. So I'm going to go into my small designs, add a flower, and you'll see it's down there. Now, I added the buttonhole and then the flower. If this icon is active, it has a dot and a dot inside it. What it will do is, as I hit the plus sign or I add more items to it, it's just going to add more of the last thing I put on the screen. If I touch this icon that has a circle and a triangle, it will increase both of them. It will alternate so that you end up having them alternating. So you don't have just a whole bunch of buttonholes or a whole bunch of flowers. So there's 3. Now I wanted 4 total buttonholes. So now I have 4 buttonholes and 3 flowers. I could have any constellation that I wanted, but now I've got not only my buttonholes when I stitch it out in a totally straight line, all the right size, all identical. I also have these nice decorative elements. So then I'll click on OK, and I'll tell you how I would stitch this out. So I go to embroidery stitch out, and what I would do is in my hoop, I would put Aqua Magic, which is water soluble stabilizer. You want Aqua Magic because once you do the buttonholes, if you use something, say like tearaway, you tear away the fabric or the paper. On the back side of your buttonholes, you might see little pieces of paper. With the Aqua Magic, you cut really close to the buttonhole, and you can even take a Q-tip and wet it and get a lot of that to dissolve. And certainly when you wash it, it's going to be all gone. So the first thing I would do, I have a demo here of this, is when I go to stitch this out, I am going to color block, sort, and merge because they're all discrete items. I am going to color block, sort, and merge because they're all discrete items. Nothing's laying on top of anything. There's no applique. I'm going to touch based around the design. So the first thing it's going to stitch out is the basting stitch. So it's going to do the square. So I would put my hoop, I'm going to put my hoop right in under the needle without any fabric, just the stabilizer. And what you'll get after you baste around the design, I don't really need to put that in there. You are going to get a template for laying your placard down. So you will get the basting stitch will show you where to lay down your placard. So you stitch that out, you stop, and then you place your fabric down on top of there. And what you're going to need to do is after you've basted, what you're going to see on your screen is you're going to see something that looks like this. This is all the buttonholes and then all the flowers. What we want to do with our fabric, though, is to do the basting stitch again, so the basting stitch will tack down our placard to our fabric. So we're going to touch this icon up here for your basting options. Touch baste around the design and then OK. So it's going to baste once again. And once you do the baste stitch again, what you're going to end up with is something that looks like this. So I placed my fabric, my placard, over the template that I had previously stitched out, and I did my basting stitch again. So now this fabric's not going anywhere, and I can do my buttonholes. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to take these stitches out. You know, those are just basting stitches. And you're going to end up with something that looks like this. So of course I would have not done this in black. I would have done it in like some sort of, you know, neutral color that would go with this beige fabric. But these are all coming out. You know, that's just my basting stitch. And you know, it's a very quick way to make perfect buttonholes in a sequence. Let's see if there's some questions. We couldn't, since it is dense, would you use 2 layers of Aqua Magic for buttonholes? It would depend on the fabric. With this cotton, I don't feel like I needed it, but if the fabric were thicker, you know, if it were doing denim, I probably would think about it. But with the cotton, I don't find that's necessary. And I tend to, I mean, I'm all for adding more stabilizer when necessary, but with Aqua Magic, you know, you also have to get when you try to get rid of it, if you have a lot of layers, it's more goopy when you're trying to wash it out, but not a big deal. But that is a good question. With thicker fabric, I would go ahead and do that, but I don't find the buttonholes that it's necessary with cotton. Okay, then another idea I was going to oh, actually, while we're talking about straight lines, if I were going to make, say, a tunic, you know, with a bodice like this, where I wanted decorative stitches on the front, I wouldn't put them under the needle and just stitch them out in sewing. What I would do is I would use the straight lines to do that. So I would take my fabric and I would pull out my pattern and I would make a mark across the top here, which I have done. I did before I stitched this out. So then when I do my shape creator with straight lines, I can get these straight lines of stitches all balanced out, all straight, all perfect. And, you know, once I get it done in Shape Creator, I just put it under the needle, push the start button, and all those decorative stitches are good to go. I can go do something else and then come back, cut this out, and sew it into a tunic. So doing lines of decorative stitches is you get a much better end result if you take the time to do it in Shape Creator. Okay, and I don't think I need to walk through doing that because it's the same as the buttonholes and a lot of the things where I was doing the circles. Instead of doing a circle, you do a straight line. And then I would turn the grid on the screen so that I can line all those lines of stitches up. And I tend to be a little lazy. So what I usually do when I do something like this is I will make 1 row of stitches, and then I'll duplicate it. I'll copy it and pull it over to the other side. But for 2 reasons. So I only have to do half the number of rows. And also I like symmetry. So I match up the rows kind of like this. So by duplicating, I mean, if you wanted the same stitch over and over again, you'd only have to create it once and then duplicate it, you know, copy it and move it over. Then speaking of copying it and moving it over, another thing that's fun to do with Shape Creator is using it to create texture. Like on this journal cover, what I did was I created a phrase in the sewing font, and then saved it, and then copied it, made the fabric first, in other words, and I'll show you what I mean. I like to use the sewing fonts in Shape Creator when I just want a texture and give some background design. It certainly doesn't pop the way an embroidery font does, you know. It's more like it makes it look old and textured. This was white quilting fabric that I had left over, and I used a goldish brown thread for the Shape Creator words, and then soaked it in some tea to make it look old. But I'll show you how you would go about doing that. How big was that hoop? Well, the hoop that I'd used for the buttonholes was 360 by 200, but it depends on how big your placard is, you know. Okay, so to make a phrase, what I would do, or how to make that journal cover design, you know, first of all, I'd do the design, I'd make the whole sheet of fabric, and then do the Shape Creator embroidery on it, then cut it into my project. But to create it on the screen, I'd actually go into sewing first, because I'm going to use a sewing font because I want it to just sort of melt into the background. I don't want it to overwhelm. So I would go into Sequence Creator and go into my fonts. And I usually use Script for that application. And I think I put measure twice, cut once for my sewing journal. Measure, space, twice, space, cut, space, once. Then I went in and I found a cute sewing stitch that looks like a needle. It's needle and thread. Let's see if I can find it quickly. There it is. It's in miscellaneous menu 6.3.9. So now I have two of them, and that's okay. So when I'm happy with it, actually, yeah, I'll just leave that in. Then I click OK. Oh, I forgot to save it. Okay, going back to Sequence Creator. I'm just going to put in measure once to save time. So I've got my phrase there, and I'm going to click OK. Oh, I know what's going on. I thought it was because I didn't save it. It's because I've got a straight stitch plate on. And with the straight stitch plate on, you cannot do anything that would break a needle. It's a safety feature. So I have to put my zigzag plate on in order to demo this. So let's go back. You're really going to see how to do Sequence Creator because of my mistakes. I'm going into the fonts, pick my font, type out my word. And I usually put a space at the end because it's going to repeat over and over again, and you don't want them pushed up against each other. Click OK. So now I've got measure once, measure once, measure once. It originally said measure once, cut twice, but this is to save time. And then I'm going to go down to my heart down at the bottom, and I'm going to give it a name. And this will save the stitch for me to use. Just call it measure in embroidery. So then I go into embroidery. I got to get rid of this design. And I call up Shape Creator, pick a straight line. And I like things going this way. You could have it going that way if you want. Pull it out the size of the fabric. And then instead of going in and picking stitches or embroidery designs, I'm going to go and pick up that stitch I just created called Measure. Oh, and this is where I previously created the this design on my fabric I just showed you. So let's delete that. Go back and find the actual design of the stitch. Here's the stitch. That was an embroidery design that I previously created in Shape Creator. So now I've got one of those. I need to add some more to fill up my line. And so now I have that like that, and I can, I've created that one version. I can go into edit and I can make copies and then just move them. You touch them to select and move them over. And before I start this, I would turn on the grid. You can touch and then turn the grid on like this so that I can get them all in where they are in alignment. And one thing that I generally do, I make sure that everyone has 0 here by the time I'm done, because that means that they're all going to be in alignment this way. All across the top, they'll be even. The first number is where they are this way, and the second number is where they are this way. It takes you back to high school math. You see these two numbers when anything's located on the screen. It's that XY axis thing from high school math. So the things on the x-axis are going this way, and the y is going this way. So if you put the second number on 0, then all the tops of your like objects will be even across the top. So if I have each of these, if it's 0, they will be even across the top. And then I just spread them from side to side in a pleasing way so that I have that nice texture. And we have come to the end of our hour. Any last questions? I didn't get to, I think I pretty much showed you most of the things I wanted to talk about. I could have, if I actually had the camera where I should have had it each time, we might have done a couple more things. But at any rate, I hope you all got something out of this class. Like I said, I really love Shape Creator. I love Applique Creator, and I love combining them. When you combine them together, then you can make some really cool things because you'll have the power of both features. So I will be checking these, any questions that have been given. Let's see, I got another text. I wonder if I did something else wrong. Let's see. Oh, he's just telling me I'm over time. Okay, I am over time. So what I was going to say is that I will be checking the comments and questions for the next week. So if you have a comment or question, please let me know. And I will answer it after I get off the air. And just thank you so much for spending this hour with me. I had a great time. And I hope you go and play with your icon and with Shape Creator. Also, if you have the 4.5, the Creative Sensation Pros had some form of Shape Creator. So just try it out and have fun. So happy sewing.